having a poor relationship with masculinity was ruining my life as a man. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance that it's ruining yours too, or at least it's one of the biggest contributing reasons why you probably aren't where you want to be in life right now, right? So personally, rekindling my relationship with masculinity has actually taken me from being essentially a useless, degenerate, uni student, partying, complete NPC, into, within the span of a year, being a multi-six-figure business owner and essentially traveling now wherever I want to at any point in time. I'm free, right? So last month I was actually just in Bali with a couple of guys, just because, you know, we can, and it's really nice to be there with a bunch of guys. And I actually just got back today from Bintan. I was there this week, another guy's trip, you know, over there working, having a good time, right? So you really need to pay really close attention to this video, because there's really no telling what fixing just this one thing could do for you and for your life, right? Like, you could be in Bali a year from now watching this video. So if you're not where you want to be in life right now, and you're a man and the word masculinity doesn't really mean anything to you at this point, or maybe it means something negative, honestly, at this point in your head, then it's gonna be really crucial that you pay attention to this video. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a quick story actually about this. So part of what inspired this video is I was looking through my camera roll the other day on my phone, right? I was on my iPhone, I was looking through my camera roll for something from 2 years ago. I can't remember why, but I was in there and I was looking at my videos on my phone from 2 years ago, and I came across this video of me that was recorded when I was working a sales job 2 years ago, right? So I was like, there was a stint of a couple of months where I was, you know, trying sales. I was like selling insurance, things like that, right? So there was a video that was recorded that was a professionally shot video. So I was like, I remember this thing. I remember we went for this photo shoot. So I clicked on the video, and I heard my voice from June of 2021. So I was 21 years old in this video, okay? I heard my voice, and I did not recognize myself. My voice was so much higher. I sounded different, my accent was different. Well, I was sort of pandering to the Singaporean crowd, so my accent was different, but my voice was so much higher. And I was listening to the video and I was looking at it, and my face, genuinely, my face was like this. I was like, what? What? It shocked me, right? And then I thought about it, and I thought, I think my testosterone level was actually lower then, and it was probably significantly lower. And then so I thought back to, okay, well, why might that be? If that's the case, why would that have been the case, right? So I looked at the way that I was living my life back then 2 years ago. I thought back to it. I thought, I was partying a lot. I was just drinking a lot. I was hanging out with friends all the time. Nothing really, you know, I mean, I was working a sales job and I was working really hard. I was going to the gym, but inconsistently. My diet was messy, right? And overall, my life was it was very different back then. And I was genuinely living a lower testosterone life, honestly, because I wasn't doing anything grand. I wasn't really fulfilling my purpose. Plus, I was conforming to a lot of societal conditioning, pardon me, where essentially I was just trying to fit in, right? I was trying to fit in with the people around me, trying to be liked, trying not to be seen as threatening, right? Trying to be nice, all of these things. So the reality of my life back then was really one of me not fulfilling my purpose, right? I was just working really hard, but working for money, right? I was bathing in hedonism every week, right? I was living a very hedonistic lifestyle. I was constantly chasing pleasure and instant gratification. And lastly, I had no knowledge, no understanding about anything to do with masculinity or femininity for that fact. And I had no masculine role models. I had nothing to look up to, nothing to understand. So who knows if my testosterone was really lower back then? Not like I can go back and measure it, but if I was a betting man, I would say that it was lower, right? Because if I just compare myself now to myself 2 years ago, right, 2021, I am way more masculine now than I was back then, right? For a host of reasons. And so I talk about this entire story just to show that even in such a short span of time between two phases of adulthood, right? I was an adult at 21 and I'm an adult now. Even then, in such a short period of time, you can change your relationship with masculinity and maybe even physiologically experience changes, right? In your physique and in your voice, right? Like I'm right now, I'm in the best physical shape that I've ever been in my life. And again, my voice is deeper than it was 2 years ago. So these are actual physiological changes, right? So this isn't trivial, like woo-woo stuff that goes on in your head. Like, no, like this can actually be a real physical changes, right? And I'm certainly not the only example. There are much more drastic examples of changes that people have seen in their lives, right? So first, we're going to talk about diagnosing the problem. Why is this a problem? How have we gotten here? What does that look like? And then we're going to go into the prescriptions, which are, actually solutions. What can you do? Actionable steps that you can take. Okay. So let's look at the facts first. Within the span of about 40 years, right, since the 80s, average male testosterone level has actually decreased by about 1% every single year across age groups. Okay, there hasn't been much difference in the data across the different age groups in how much it's been decreasing. There was a study that showed between, I think it was 2006 to 2019, there was an average decrease of more than 10% in average testosterone level between 2006 and 2019. And again, that was across all age groups. There wasn't much difference. It averaged out at about 10%. Okay. Now, anecdotal evidence, right? I can literally walk down the street and see men that you almost don't know. You have to take a second look to figure out, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a man, right? And so physiological appearance now is even taking a hit. The same study actually showed that grip strength of men on average has decreased, aligned with the decrease in testosterone, right? So that means that on average, you compared to, let's say, your grandfather, right? Your body is naturally producing significantly less testosterone than your grandfather's was at the same age, and physically you are not as strong as him. You are physically weaker on average than your grandfather, okay? So these are real consequences unfolding in society from, again, a whole host of reasons. It's a multivariate problem, right? So if you're not aware about testosterone, if you're not aware of what testosterone actually does for you as a man, it is obviously a natural hormone that your body produces. It has to do with your mood regulation, your memory function, your sex drive, your sperm production, right? Your bone strength, your muscle density, your muscle building, all of these things. So across the board, it is an extremely important hormone for men, right? And so this decrease obviously is going to hinder your life. So those are the physiological realities, right, of the actual, physical problems that you're facing, which I'm not going to get into too much in this video because we could talk about that forever, right? But the more important thing is mentally, right? What is your relationship with masculinity and what has that been like, right? I'm willing to bet that you were probably brought up in an environment that was mostly women, right? At least for me, when I was in primary school, which was basically from age 7 to age 12, 90% of my teachers in school, right, public school that I was in, were women, right? And so the amount of masculine role models that I had, or let's just say male role models that I had, really weren't many, right? And at every turn where ill-formed or beginnings of some sort of masculine traits were emerging in behavior, whether mine or someone else's around, what always happened is that would always get shut down, that would always get punished, right? So rough and tumble play of any sort was, you were told it's dangerous, you gotta be careful, don't do that, you get punished, right? Let's say a teacher says something and you talk back to the teacher, or you stand up for yourself somehow, verbally against the teacher, you get told off for that, you get punished, right? You're trying to do something your own way, right? Trying to solve a problem your own way, trying to forge your own path in some way in school, you probably get shut down for that, you could probably get punished, right? So even something as simple as when you're growing up, especially around, in friend groups and things like that, especially when it's guys and girls and everything, and if you're not particularly emotionally bothered by something, or you're being stoic about something, right, you're often told that you're often looked at and, oh, this person's just acting cool, right? This person's, so you almost get shunned for if you were ever stoic in any kind of situation. It's almost as if you have to have some kind of emotional commitment and emotional response to whatever the situation is going on. And worst of all, you were probably taught that aggression in any sense of the word and in any context, under any circumstances, right, is completely unacceptable and wholesale just morally bankrupt, right? Any kind of aggression in any sense of the word at any point in time is wrong, and it can never be good, right? And you were never taught to control your aggression, or the concept of controlled aggression was never introduced to you. We'll get into that later, okay? And so that's when you're sort of young and you're still in your formative years, right? And as let's say you're a teenager now, and you're in high school, and maybe you start hearing terms being thrown around like toxic masculinity. And you don't really know what that means, but you do know that when people use it, it's basically a male person says something that people don't like. A guy says something that offends someone. Let's say it offends a girl, right? Guy says something girl doesn't like, girl says toxic masculinity, right? Or another one, mansplaining, right? Guy explains something to girl, guy is mansplaining. Right? So you hear all these things getting thrown around, you're like, well, I want to be liked. I don't want to mansplain, right? So maybe you kind of stop talking so much to girls because you're afraid, you're afraid if you explain something, you're going to be mansplaining, right? Now, again, these are all little, small things that just seep into your subconscious, right? And that you don't really notice, but they start to form associations with masculinity. You start to look at masculinity and you have all of these associations that come in. Right, so now the crucial thing we're going to talk about now is actually defining, like, what is masculinity and what makes a man, right? When you ask yourself those questions, there are going to be some words that start to be promoted into your consciousness, right? Some words start to come up, maybe aggressive, maybe toxic comes up when you think of masculinity, right? Maybe when you think of what it means to be a man, you think big, strong, right? You think macho, maybe, right? If you think of the word masculinity, you might think of macho. You might think emotionally inept. You might think that, right? So these are all associations that your brain has formed with, let's say, masculinity, or what it means to be a man, right? If you don't have that many associations, it's not really clear to you, maybe, or if those associations are, just brutally negative, right, then it's no wonder that you're finding it difficult to be a man. Because here's the thing, if you're having a hard time even defining stuff like that for yourself, or the definitions are completely negative to you and you're a man, then how are you going to move forward, right? Because the reality and why this is the case for you is that you haven't been trained in being a man at all, right? As a matter of fact, you've probably been trained out of it in some ways in your childhood and in your teenage years even, right? And in your adulthood, right? You're in small ways, you're subconsciously actually getting trained out of it as well, okay? So you land yourself in this weird spot because you are a man, but you don't have really any training in being a man, right? If you had a good father, that's a great start, right? Unfortunately, even just in the United States, 25%, I think it's like 25 or 23%, it's like 1 in 4 families are single mother households, something absurd, right? So, father figures are literally missing from the homes, right? But so if you have had no training in being a man at all, you still can't be a woman. That's the crazy part, is that you're still a man. So now you're in this weird limbo where well, you don't really know how to be a man, but you also can't be a woman, right? You can never give the feminine gifts to the world that a woman could give biologically, like a biological woman. And even a woman with a naturally feminine spiritual core, and you have a masculine spiritual core, there's no way you can give those feminine gifts to the world. And so you're in this limbo where you don't know how to be a good man, and you also can't be a woman, and so you end up just docile, ineffective, nice, pushover, undirected, weak, easily perturbed, uneasy, the list goes on. So how is this lack of masculinity, or even the lack of a positive relationship with masculinity, how is that contributing to making you feel stuck, right? Well, maybe you can't do the work, right? You can't commit to any kind of real work for any substantial length of time, right? Maybe you get bursts of motivation, spurts of it, and then after that it dies out and you're going nowhere, right? You just go back into the void when the motivation disappears, right? You have no discipline. Maybe you're actually in a job or in a vocation that you're working hard in, but actually you really don't you don't care about it whatsoever. You're not making any kind of impact that you want to make. And maybe you actually hate it, right? But you don't have the guts to leave. Okay, maybe you can't commit to a woman either. You're having difficulty committing to a woman properly and being monogamous, right? Maybe you can't attract a feminine woman that you would actually want to commit to, right? Maybe you are in a relationship, you do have a partner, right? But that partner doesn't respect you, right? Or that partner doesn't treat you the way that you actually want to be treated, right? These are all examples of, being stuck in a way that you wouldn't want to be stuck, right? And you may relate to one or more of these, right? One or more of these could apply to your life. And I would say that the commonality and the pattern across all of these problems is that one of the biggest contributing factors to those problems is the fact that you don't have a good relationship with masculinity, right? So that's the diagnosis, right? We've got a lay of the land. We've laid everything out on the table. We can see how you might have gotten here, why you're stuck, how masculinity is contributing to you being stuck. Okay, so now we're going to talk prescriptions, okay? Meaning new associations you can form with masculinity. Let's actually define it, right? Let's actually define what it means to be a man. And the actual good associations with it. So I've actually listed out my associations when I think of the question, what does it mean to be a man? Okay, so I'm going to list those associations out for you now. Okay, what does it mean to be a man? A masculine man is principled, calm, centered, guided by truth, purposeful, immovable, certain, in control, directed, controlled aggression, protective, a provider, okay? Depth of presence, unshakable, grounded, okay? So these are some of the associations that I listed with being a man, right? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a masculine man? Okay, so go back and listen to those if you can, okay? Because it's going to be important. So those are mine, okay? So I want to give another example. I'll tell a quick story. So just a couple of days ago, I had a friend who asked me, he said, we were walking, he said, Chris, I feel like you're more of a masculine man than me, and I feel like I don't really know what it means to be masculine. I think of myself as a more docile and calm person. I don't think of myself as very aggressive, and so I think that in that sense you're more masculine than me. But I don't know how I can form a better opinion of masculinity, because as it stands, I don't feel like I want to be more masculine. Something to that effect, right? And I said, I remember saying, it's not unmasculine to be calm. Why do you think that being aggressive, just being aggressive in itself is about masculinity? Because you can be extremely aggressive and not be a man at all. You can be extremely aggressive and be an overgrown child, right? So I gave an example of, let's say, a street fight, right? So let's say the street fight breaks out and, you're fighting some guy and you actually land a clean shot, guy goes down. If you don't have controlled aggression, the guy's already gone down, and then you still keep punching and you're wailing on this guy and you're shouting and you're still punching, the guy's already gone, you're still punching, you spit on the guy afterwards, and all this whole shebang, right? That is completely uncontrolled aggression, right? What separates you as a man from an animal is being able to control that aggression, right? Being able to use minimal necessary force in any kind of situation to protect yourself, protect your loved ones, to get out of that situation, right? So controlled aggression would be, let's say you land a clean shot, guy goes down, you see that he's down, and you stop. And you're like, no, he's done, right? No showboating, no yelling, no spitting on somebody, no extra shots and this kind of stuff, right? That's what separates you as a man from a complete animal, right? Is your ability to control that aggression, right? So it's not the aggression that makes the man. It is control, right? I would also say that being calm is definitely, it's one of my associations that I wrote down there, right? In terms of being a masculine man. But here's where there's a difference in what my friend was saying, right? He said he thought of himself as calm and sort of, well, what he really meant was docile, right? Harmless is really what he meant, right? Because there's a difference between being calm because you're choosing to be calm right now, or only being calm because nothing is threatening you in this moment. Okay, there's a difference between the man that is calm when he's sitting on the couch and he's calm when there's a gun pointed at him, versus the man who's calm on the couch and then when the gun's pointed at him, he starts panicking. Okay, one of those is a choice, right? And the other one is this man is just being blown around by his emotions. Okay, so the fact is we live in such a modern, safe place for most of you, I hope, where you're not having a gun pointed in your face every single day. But the reality is that if that's the kind of life that you're living, you're not ever being tested and you can't really see how you'll react in these situations. You might just be thinking that you're a calm person because you're never under any kind of duress or any kind of threat, right? But then when you put yourself under stress, right? I know some people, I know some men that are really just overgrown children, but you can, within a couple of questions, you can rile this person up so much just by asking them a couple of questions, natural questions about their life. What are you, what are you doing right now? How are things going? Whatever, how's work or whatever. You can emotional explosion, right? So it's the control, right? It's the emotional control, and I would even say what distinguishes you from a man versus being a woman, right? So we can even talk about this. So let's go to, let's say not a street fight, but let's say a confrontation in public, okay? If there's a confrontation in public, if you lose your emotional control in that moment, right? As a man, let's say, someone's confronting you in public, if you lose your emotional control, you're now putting everyone around you actually in physical danger. Versus if you're a woman, and generally speaking, if you are having an emotional moment in public, right? No one around really feels like they're in any kind of genuine danger, any kind of physical danger, right? If a woman, let's say, is throwing an emotional fit at her man in public, people still kind of walk by and they kind of look and they don't really feel like it's a very dangerous situation. Now reverse the situation. You have a man losing his temper, completely getting emotionally all over the place in public with another person, maybe it's his woman, right? That is actually a situation of actual danger, right? Now people around actually feel like they're in danger, okay? So the emotional control, right, in that situation is also partly what makes you a masculine man, right? A woman, other than the fact that it's societally, frowned upon to have a whole episode in public, but the reality is that she can actually have an emotional episode in public and have it not really be of huge consequence to herself, to anyone around her. Like, she can actually do that, and it's not too much of an issue. It's not putting a whole bunch of people in danger. But you can't do that as a man. Okay, you actually have to be in control of your emotions. Crazy, right? Okay, now last example. What does it mean to be principled, right, as a masculine man? When I say that, principled, right, what does it mean? So, quick story. I was at a Halloween party actually this year. I wasn't intending to go, but I had a couple of friends that really did want to go, and I said to myself, okay, look, I'm gonna go for this party. but I'm actually gonna do 1,000 push-ups while I'm there to allow myself to even be at that party. I have to achieve something. So I was like, all right, at that party, throughout the course of the time, I'm gonna do 1,000 push-ups. I actually had a guy friend that joined me to do these 1,000 push-ups. So anyway, I said, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do these 1,000 push-ups, and I'm not going to drink at all at this party. Now, mind you, everybody is drinking at this party. So I go there, and sure enough, over the course of about 5 hours, I complete these 1,000 push-ups, not a single drop of alcohol. I did bring some coffee actually for myself to drink this coffee to get a bit of caffeine, but the amount of times that I was offered alcohol at this party was, I can't even count, dozens, okay? Lots of times, girls coming up to me with bottles of vodka, trying to pour it into my mouth, right? And me just saying, no, I'm really not drinking tonight, I'm really not drinking. And I stuck by that the entire night, right? And it came to a point where people, obviously stopped offering me drinks because they realized that it wasn't going to work, right? The stuff that would work on even, a guy that goes and says that he's not going to drink, but then after the third or fourth girl that tries to make him drink, he'll eventually drink, right? But people, it would eventually realize that, no, Chris isn't going to drink. Like he said he's not going to, and that means he's actually not going to. And I didn't, right? And also I said that I was going to do 1,000 push-ups. It sounded ridiculous. It sounded silly, but I actually completed them by the end of the party, right? So that's just an example of what it means to be principled, right? And people understand that and they respect that, right? And although they might act and behave and say things otherwise and to the contrary, but they will see and they will actually value that ability of yours to be principled. Okay, so we've been through controlled aggression, right, which is the example of the street fight. What separates you from being just a complete animal and just wailing on tearing another person to shreds is your ability to control your aggression, right? Your use of your logos, right? Your judgment, your rationality, right? And your ability to be stoic and to control that aggression and to use minimal necessary force. Okay, and then we also talked about emotional control, even just in confrontational situations, right? Emotional control, true mastery over your emotions, and not even just mastery, but controlling them in a way that they don't dictate your actions most of the time. That's actually kind of what separates you from actually being like a woman, right? Or being more feminine, right? Being more emotionally directed, right? So that's what separates you there. We also talked about being calm, right? Which is being calm is a virtue when it's actually a test, right? When there's a test of a situation where you're put under pressure, right? And most people wouldn't be calm in this situation, but you are able to stay calm, right? There's a difference between that and just being calm because you're not being tested at all, because you're not being threatened at all, you're not under any kind of stress, right? So most people are going to be in that camp, right? You have to be in the camp where you can be calm when everybody else is calm, but when everybody else is panicking, you are still calm. That is real virtue, right? Because there's actually a test and you bring your virtue to the table and they can actually cancel out, right? Virtue can't exist completely in a vacuum, right? There has to be something that brings it out. So we talked about that as well, being calm, okay? So from this point, okay, how can you form a healthier relationship with masculinity? Because you might be sitting here and think, okay, this is all new stuff, or this is all great, but actionables, what actionables can I have? Okay, so it's going to come down to two things. Okay, there are cases in which you require more information, and you're going to have to decide this. Okay, you're going to have to determine this. It's either you require more information, or maybe you require a change in attitude, or maybe both of those things. Okay, so in terms of requiring more information, obviously what you can do is you can read books. Right now, obviously, there's lots of podcasts and things out there. Find good ones, right? Find good men that embody some of the traits, some of the associations that are listed out. Look at how these men are living their lives. Look at how they think about certain things, how they behave in business, in relationships. Take in information, right? So read books, some of the books that you can read. The Way of the Superior Man by David Dita. Really, really, really good book. I cannot overstate this. I've read it 3 times by now, or rather, I'm on my 3rd read through of the book right now, or maybe 4th. I think I've read it 3 times already, right? So I'm still going back to it because there's really a lot in there, okay? Hard Times Create Strong Men, that's another good book. Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins. Never Finished as well, David Goggins. And a personal favorite of mine is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, okay? So these are some books that you can read. Highly, highly recommend those, okay? And again, yeah, if you are more of a visual, if you just don't like reading books, like most Gen Z people, then find some good video content if that's your preferred way to digest information, okay? Find some good podcasts, find some good people to look up to, okay? Now, if you require, on top of requiring more information, you might also just require a change in attitude, okay? So that means unlearning your current biases towards what it is to be a man, what it is to be masculine, right? Notice those biases, those negative ones that you might have, and don't give power to them. Right? Just stop giving power to them. Stop going down those same routes that your brain has always gone down. Just notice them, be like, okay, but I'm done with that, right? So take the opportunities to practice masculine virtues whenever you can, right? Like stoicism, like discipline, controlled aggression. Like take these concepts and immediately seize opportunities to actually practice these masculine virtues. Okay, I'll give you an example. When a family member blows up at you over nothing, okay, that is not just an annoyance, right? That is actually a situation, that is an opportunity for you to practice virtue, for you to put into practice a virtue like stoicism, a virtue like emotional control. Okay, so look out in your life and look for these opportunities to actually practice these virtues and do them and see what happens. See what happens as a consequence of you actually manifesting these things in reality, right? You might notice that people treat you a little bit differently. You might notice that, you know, maybe a girl is interested in you now, and maybe that wasn't the case before. Maybe you get a bit more respect from some of your friends, right? Just notice what happens, right? Put these things into practice. Begin to seek and identify masculine virtues in other people, right? Like I said, look at things online, right? Like look, whatever you're doing, spending your time online, look at people, look at men and see, okay, actually this guy has that virtue, right? Like he's really calm in this stressful situation. Or you can look at this other guy and go, he's really disciplined, right? Or look at this guy and go, he's really purpose driven, right? Or this guy's really certain about what he's doing. He's so certain. Start to identify these masculine virtues, right, in other people. Pay attention to those people and try and compartmentalize those things and look at them. Okay, this person is a role model for being calm in stressful situations. Okay, this person is a role model for being disciplined, etc., etc. Do that, right, as much as you can. Look at those people and continue to pay attention to only those men that clearly embody the virtues that you wish to have and that you want to possess, okay? So that is the change in attitude that you need to have. So again, you might require a change or a more information, okay? And that's where you're gonna go to the books, you're gonna go to try and find, podcasts, role models, things like that, okay? And then change in attitude, right, is everything that I've just talked about. Okay, so those are some actionables that you can take here to start forming a better and healthier relationship with masculinity. And you'll notice changes happen pretty quickly, right? Again, like how people treat you is gonna be slightly different, right? And you're not gonna get things right all of the time, right? But you'll notice changes happen pretty quickly, and even just changes in how you feel and how you perceive yourself. Okay, so the last thing that I'm gonna leave you with, the last virtue that I wanna leave you with is, if you want to unstick yourself as a man from your situation in life right now, however undesirable that is, you have to start by taking complete accountability for where you are. It might not be your fault in the entire sense of the word that you are where you are now, but it is your problem, okay? It's going to be partly your fault, but it might not be fully your fault that you are where you are now, right? But it is still your problem. Okay, so you have to take full accountability for that in order to unstick yourself. Okay, now if you're a woman, this is not certainly the case, because you could be in a horrible situation, and you might still meet a man that actually wants to unstick you from that and actually wants to look after you financially and take care of you physically and all these things. But if you're a man, that option is not on the table at all. Okay, there is no option. If you're stuck as a man, there is no one that's going to come and unstick you. Okay, it has to be you. Okay, and so that means that you have to, you have no choice. You have to take full self accountability for where you are in life. Wherever you are, you are choosing to be there. Okay, right now you are choosing to be there. Wherever you are, however unhappy you are with your current circumstances, know that that is the life that you chose. Okay, and you can choose to live a different life. Okay, and you have to start by being completely holding yourself accountable to that, knowing that, okay, it might not be fully my fault, but I can say that it's probably mostly my fault, right? And irrespective of whose fault it is, I'm gonna stop pointing fingers outwards and I'm gonna point here, right? And I'm gonna say, it is my problem. I have to solve this. There's no one that's gonna come along and solve it for me. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there today. I think I've talked a lot about this, but I really hope you enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Leave a comment and let me know if this was actually a valuable video to you, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram is actually in the description. So other than that, I hope that you are having a great time, having a great Christmas. It's actually Christmas in like 2 days, I think. So yeah, enjoy it, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.